Cush Sovereignty, Black Righteousness by L. James Bolin. Chapter 5 Part 2, His Plan, Your Goals. Mletsi stood above Wanyenyekevu as he slept. He was awakened by his presence and saw someone else with him. Mletsi? Wanyenyekevu said as he slowly got up, who is this? It seems as if I know him. Mletsi smiled and said, this is your guardian angel or Ange guardian in your tongue, but his name cannot be pronounced or spoken in your language. You may call him Yael. Yael stood there with a blank look on his face. He stood about 9 feet tall, muscular, with long hair down to his waist. Slowly, he nodded his head to say hello. Wanyenyekevu looked at Yael and said, you're not the talkative type, are you? Mletsi smiled as Yael replied with a dry voice, no. Wanyenyekevu asked, why do you look so familiar? Yael said calmly, when you were 5, you picked up a stick and started swinging it. That stick became a sword, and it was then that I started teaching you how to wield that sword. When you were 9, you fell asleep outside your home, and a snake was headed toward you. I stopped him from attacking you, and there's a time you were asleep and were awakened by my presence. When I was about to leave, you woke up, looked up at me, and said, oh, it is you. And then you went back to sleep. I have protected you since you were in your mother's womb. Wanyenyekevu's memory was brought back to him as Yael spoke. Yes, I do remember the waking up part. Yael continued, 3 weeks ago, you almost drowned. It was I that lifted you so you could grab that limb from the tree. Mletsi stood there and politely interrupted, Yael will train you today. As he disappeared, Yael came at Wanyenyekevu with full force. Wanyenyekevu dodged Yael's approach and threw a punch toward him, but it went right through him. Then Yael kicked Wanyenyekevu, and he flew out of the tent into some bushes. 15 minutes they fought before Wanyenyekevu was tired and said out of frustration, how is this training? I cannot land one punch because they go right through you. Yael said sternly, this day forward, you must fight in the spirit. Understand this, because you are already flesh, you can truly defeat the flesh, but if you fight in the spirit because you're already flesh, you can defeat both. The flesh cannot fight spirit, and spirit cannot fight the flesh, only the spirit within the flesh. Why do you jeûn and don't use it? Until now, no one has been able to, so I will teach you how to fight in the spirit. You will teach others. Pointing at a log, he commanded Wanyenyekevu, sit. Yael motioned as if he was throwing something at him, but his hands were empty. Before he knew it, Wanyenyekevu saw a water bag coming toward him as he grabbed it. Drink. Yael said. This leather skin bag you now drink from was not in my hand before I threw it to you. But I had manifested it in the spirit, and it became tangible before it left my hand. You must learn to fight in the spirit from this day forward. For fighting in the spirit will always conquer the flesh. Wanyenyekevu was confused, and Yael saw the confusion in his eyes. Yael said, teach me your fighting style as if I'm your student. Before you finish, you will no longer be confused. Wanyenyekevu was excited yet nervous as his heart was beating like a drum, for he was always the student but never the teacher. He stood up. Yael, you're my first student. Yael smiled, I am not, by far, your last. Wanyenyekevu was shocked at the smile and didn't hear what Yael had said because it baffled him that Yael had even smiled. Wanyenyekevu said, okay, first a brief history. My style is a mixture of African, Asian, and Native American martial art handed down from generation to generation in my family called poing or hands. Yael said, after we are done, it will no longer be its name, it will be called poing de Dieu or hands of God. Wanyenyekevu became excited and began teaching. Using styles like Kamjuka, Okichida, tomahawk fighting, Falamakai, Chulukuwariu, and incorporating them with the African art of fighting. They work together as one force, keeping with what we call the 7 grandfathers, Nibwakawan, Zagiyediwan, Minadendamoan, Ekoduan, Kwayokwadizawan, Dabadandizawan, and Debwan, which are wisdom, love, respect, bravery, humility, and truth, respectively. Wisdom, to cherish knowledge, is to know wisdom. Wisdom is given by the Creator to be used for the people's good. Love is the ability to know peace as love, and this love must be unconditional. Respect is to honor all creation, therefore, to respect it. All creation, big or small, must be treated with respect. You must give respect if you wish to be respected. Bravery. Bravery is to face the foe with integrity and honesty. Honesty in facing a situation is to be brave. Always be honest in words and actions. Being honest first with yourself makes it easy to be honest with others. Humility is to know yourself as a sacred part of creation. And lastly, truth. Truth is to know these things. Speak the truth, so you do not deceive yourself or others. Wanyenyekevu began unstrapping something from his leather backpack. This is an isi langu, our traditional war shield. It's made from wood and usually 4 foot long. He grabs a white pearl cane he has strapped to his back. This was my great-great-grandfather Hakan. He slightly turned the handle, and a spear ejected, then he turned the handle the opposite way, and the spear quickly retracted into the cane. This is an assegai. He reached into his backpack. Oh, I forgot, I love making these out of wood and even metals, they come in handy, called shurikens or stars. Now, all moves and techniques are used in what we call a kata. Kata is a Japanese word which means form. It refers to a detailed choreographed pattern of martial arts movements made to be practiced alone. It can also be reviewed within groups and in unison when training. It is practiced in martial arts to memorize and perfect your movements. Simply a dance, and it comfortably combines all your activities. As you perform your kata, you create moves and styles of your own until you become a master by using stances and preparatory positions, kicking, striking, and blocking techniques. I will perform and name a few of each. Your stances or tachiwaza, which are many. You have, Wanyenyekevu stands there with his arms tucked to his side in a fist and continues, Hisakudachi, a formal attention stance. Hold on, I forgot to bow. Then he stood straight up with both heels touching, then bowed and said, one bow to show respect to his opponent. Then he quickly spread his feet at a 45-degree angle, saying, Musubi dachi, this is an informal attention stance, and he moved quickly yet gracefully changing his position. Now, this is a parallel attention stance, called Hikodachi, and changing his position once again, he said. One more, Hachiji dachi, an outward feet stance. Wanyenyekevu stood up with his knee slightly bent, saying, now, your blocking techniques or yukwaza can be used with arms or legs. Using the arms, he quickly raised his left arm, bent at a 45-degree angle, saying, Age yuk or rising block. He then quickly thrust his arm down, and said, MP yuk, elbow block. He continued to move around, calling out positions, Geden barai, sweeping low block. Sweating profusely, he had just caught his second wind, calling out positions, blocking with your legs, Ashikubi cake yuk or hooking ankle block, Mikazuki jerry yuk, crescent kick block, Namiashi, leg snapping wave block. Yael attempted to interrupt him twice, but Wanyenyekevu didn't hear him as he continued, then you have your striking techniques, Achiwaza. Yael shouted forcefully. EZMPI. Quickly, without hesitation, Wanyenyekevu became quiet and stood in a battle stance. Confused for a second until Yael said, You thought I didn't know that command? Wanyenyekevu said. Sabaoth knows all because he created all. Yael, with somewhat of a smile, said, Let me see this kata without you calling out the titles of every move you make. He gracefully performed a kata that lasted 20 minutes, trying not to call out the move, for it was a habit. Yael stood there and asked, Do you see your enemies in front of you when you perform this kata? Wanyenyekevu said. Sometimes. Yael created an illusion of 5 tall and muscular men. Now, let's see how you can dance with these men. The men formed a circle around Wanyenyekevu and attacked him. He quickly blocked and counterattacked the men even though he was tired and needed to catch his breath, for he had been going on for nearly an hour without rest. One by one, the men attacked Wanyenyekevu. Yael did not concern himself that Wanyenyekevu needed rest. That's when Yael said, Here's how you fight in the spirit, for I see your flesh is tired. Use your spirit to finish the fight. Don't worry that you're tired, for flesh gets tired, but your spirit does not. When you fast, you want food but do not eat, for you set your mind, and the spirit follows and takes over. Do the same here. Yael paused as he saw Wanyenyekevu slowly getting the message when he said, "Remember, your mind tells the spirit tells the soul." It was as if that statement made him see things in another light, and it was light shown in the darkness, an epiphany. Wanyenyekevu fought back furiously and defeated the men. They disappeared, and Wanyenyekevu said, "I kind of understand now," Yael said. "You rest and fully understand what was said and what you have done for the rest of the day." Wanyenyekevu, exhausted and out of breath, takes a seat on a log. Yael smiled again. "Your meal for today is in Transylvania." Wanyenyekevu looked up, saying, "That's about 2 hours away." Yael replied, "It would seem that you might need to get started then." Wanyenyekevu said to Yael as he started jogging towards Transylvania, "Even your humor is dry." As Wanyenyekevu got closer to Transylvania, he saw at a distance a campfire. Mletsi was standing in front of the fire. "Eat and get some rest, for tomorrow will be a day of relaxation and conversation." Wanyenyekevu took a seat on top of a rock fashioned like a chair. "If we are going to talk, why do I need?" As he took a seat, he heard the words, "And upon this rock, I will build my church, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it." He looked up. Mletsi had disappeared.